Welcome to the Unknown Chronicles, where the veil between reality and the mysterious is razor thin. Together we'll journey into the darkest recesses of the human experience, where truth twists into terror and shadows whisper secrets. Prepare yourself to face the unexplained, the unsettling, and the unspeakable. The unknown is waiting. Let's step into the darkness. Today, we have our first story coming from Mara of Arkansas, read by your host, Thorn Bloodrose. This story is called The Crimson Bauble. It started the moment I brought that cursed thing into my home. The snowstorm had driven me into the strangest little antique shop, a place I'd sworn I'd never seen before despite walking that street countless times. The bell above the door jangled as I stepped in, shaking snow from my coat. The interior was dim and cramped, every surface crowded with peculiar trinkets, oddities, and forgotten relics of bygone eras. It was the smell that struck me first, a mix of old wood, mothballs, and something metallic. I wandered around through the maze-like aisles, my fingers brushing over the dusty books, tarnished brass candlesticks, and cracked porcelain dolls. And then I saw it, a crimson bauble, nestled in the shadowy corner of a shelf. It wasn't large, but it seemed to dominate the space, glowing faintly even in the dim light. The deep red of its surface appeared to ripple as though alive, and the golden etchings coiled like vines, their intricate patterns almost hypnotic. "I wouldn't take that," a voice croaked. I turned to see the shopkeeper, an elderly man with milky white eyes that barely seemed to focus. His hands trembled as he gestured at the bauble. "It's not just a decoration," he continued, his voice low and rough. "It belonged to someone who—" He trailed off, shaking his head. I laughed nervously, brushing off his warning. The bauble seemed to hum faintly in my hand, warmth radiating from it that felt oddly comforting. I couldn't leave without it. It wasn't just an ornament, it felt like it was meant for me. I handed the shopkeeper a crumbled bill and hurried out, ignoring his murmured protests. That evening, I hung the bauble on my Christmas tree. It felt heavier than it looked, unnervingly warm in my hand. As I stepped back to admire the tree, a faint chill ran down my spine. The bauble shimmered in the glow of the string lights, its surface almost pulsing in time with my heartbeat. At first, everything seemed... The storm raged outside, and I curled up on the couch with a mug of cocoa, admiring my handiwork. The tree was beautiful, a beacon of warmth and light against the howling winds. But as the night wore on, the whispers began. Soft at first, barely audible over the wind. I told myself it was the house settling, the creak of old wood against the cold. But the sounds grew louder, clearer. It wasn't just noise. It was voices, dozens of them, speaking in frantic, overlapping murmurs just beyond comprehension. When I went to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air felt heavy, the shadows in the corner of my room, too deep, too solid. Sleep came fitfully, plagued by dreams of shadowy figures and endless crimson glow. The next morning, the whispers followed me. They were faint during the day, like buzz of an insect you can't quite locate. I tried to ignore them, convincing myself it was stress or lack of sleep, but that night they grew louder. When I entered the living room, I froze. The bauble was glowing, not just reflecting the light of the tree, but emanating its own faint, pulsing red light. I stepped closer, heart pounding. The whispers grew sharper, more distinct, and then I saw it. Something was moving inside the bauble. A figure, small and misshapen, writhed against the glass, its limbs bending at unnatural angles, its eyeless face turned towards me, and though it had no mouth, I heard its voice. "Not yours." I stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. The crash echoed through the room, but the bauble remained undisturbed, its glow intensifying as mocking laughter filled the air. I tried everything to get rid of it. I wrapped the bauble in newspaper and duct tape, stuffing it in the trash bin outside, but by evening it was back on the tree, hanging in its exact spot as if mocking me. Next, I smashed it with a hammer, watching as the shards dissolved into a fine red dust that swirled around me before vanishing. Yet, when I turned, there it was, whole and gleaming. The whispers became screams. At night I can hear them clearly, a cacophony of tortured voices calling my name, sobbing, begging, threatening. Shadows stretched along the walls, clawing towards me, their movement eerily synchronized with the bauble's pulsing light. Desperate, I returned to the antique shop, but it was gone. Where the shop had been was nothing but an empty lot, blanketed in pristine snow. By Christmas Eve, I was a wreck. Sleep was impossible. The bauble's whispers had invaded my mind, twisting my thoughts, filling my dreams with endless crimson light. I sat in front of the tree, trembling, unable to move as the bauble's glow filled the room. The golden etchings began to move, stretching and curling like living tendrils. They slithered down the tree, wrapping around my arms and legs, their touch burning like fire. "Give yourself to me," a voice hissed, clear and commanding. The tendrils tightened, pulling me closer. I clawed at them, but the more I struggled, the stronger they became. I was being pulled towards the tree. Pulled. No. Absorbed into the bauble. The room around me blurred. The walls seemed to melt into shadows. My body felt weightless, my vision fading. And then I opened my eyes. The world was distorted, curved and red as if seen through warped glass. The whispers were no longer outside. They surrounded me, pressing against me, suffocating me. I was inside the bauble, pounding against the surface, screaming. No one could hear me. The last thing I saw was a figure entering the room. A man, whistling a Christmas tune as he reached for the bauble. His face lit up with admiration as he lifted it from the tree. "Beautiful," he murmured. And then the cycle began again. And so, dear listeners, Mara's story comes to an end, or perhaps a new beginning. They say cursed objects have a way of finding new homes, slipping unnoticed into the lives of the unexpecting. So, as you decorate your tree this year, take a closer look at each ornament. If it seems unfamiliar, but too beautiful, too perfect, be wary, because some gifts are not meant to be received. And this has been your host, Thorn Bloodrose, wishing you merry nightmares. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your wits sharp as we continue our journey into the depths of the unknown. Remember, the shadows are closer than you think. Sleep tight, if you can.